Call this Committee of Adjustment hearing to order. Just before we get started this evening, I'm just going to go over the committee's protocols for the meeting. This evening, we have 6 applications that are on the agenda, and all specifically for different properties. The first order of business will be to ask any committee members if they have conflicts of interest with any of the applications this evening. Following that, we'll ask for requests for any deferrals or withdrawals of applications that are previously known. I will again ask each applicant as they come into the meeting if they to confirm that, just because we have the virtual meeting set up. The committee treasurer will then read out each application on the agenda with a brief description and staff recommendation, as well as any additional correspondence that's been received from the time of writing of the report. The applicant or the agent for the applicant will be brought into the meeting and asked to introduce themselves, can add any additional comments that they have that they wish to add at that time. Following that, members of the committee will have an opportunity to ask any of the applicants, ask the applicant if they have any questions. Following that, there will be members of the public will be allowed an opportunity to join into the meeting. And I believe we have 2 currently delegations listed for 2 different applications, one for each of those applications. Following the public comments, I will add, just before I go to that all public comments, once you're brought into the meeting, I ask that you try to limit your comments to 10 minutes, and please ask all questions that you have in that time frame, as you may not be allowed to return again to that same application. Following the public comments, the members, again, will have an opportunity to ask any other questions, as well as the applicant will have an opportunity to present any final comments that they have with regards to the application. Then the committee will then present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If the vote is tied, a motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made until we have a decision. I would also note that notices of the decision will only be provided to those persons who have left their names and addresses with the Secretary Treasurer and the Planning Division Department. They can contact Chris Rome at chris.rome, R-O-O-M-E, at portcolborne.ca, or leave a voice message at 905-835-2900, extension 205, immediately following the meeting or first thing in the morning, if you'd like to receive a written notice of the decision. In order to be advised of any possible local planning appeal tribunal hearings, you must request to be sent a copy of the committee's decision. So that's the protocols for this evening. The first I will go to see if there's any conflicts of interest this evening. Eric?
I have a conflict on application B06-22-PC. It's an indirect pecuniary interest, as I'm employed by the agent applicant consultants.
Thank you. Angie, you okay? And I believe...
Yeah, we're good.
Thank you. And I believe Gary Bruno, he texted me a little while ago. He's going to join us as soon as he can. And we'll check with him upon arrival as well if he's got any conflicts. So with that, requests for deferrals of applications. I did get an email earlier that application A20-21-PC has requested to defer their application based on some comments they received back from the region. Chris, can you please still confirm that?
Yes, that's correct. They'll be deferring their application until they can provide a more in-depth sketch to the NPCA.
Very good, thank you. So with that, that's all that I have. So as soon as Chris, you're ready, the first application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first application tonight is application A33-21-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended, section 11.3 CDG and section 2.8.1A4 of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended. And in the matter of the lands illegally known as Part Lot 3, 4, and 10, Concession 1 on Plan 48 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the Lakeshore Residential Zone, municipally known as 3475 Firelane 12. and in the matter of an application by the agent DeFilippis Design on behalf of the owner Ron Lucchino for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13, so as to permit a reduced front yard setback to an existing accessory structure built without a permit, an increased maximum lot coverage, and reduced interior side yard setback to the existing dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a front yard setback of 5.05 meters be provided, whereas 10 meters is required. 2, that a side yard setback of 0 meters be provided for the accessory structure and a 0.97 meter setback be permitted for the proposed accessory structure, whereas 1 meter is required. 3, that a maximum lot coverage of 28% be provided, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 15% is permitted. And 4, that an interior side yard setback of 0.58 meters be provided for the existing dwelling, whereas 3 meters is required. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the public and the required agencies on February 25th, 2022, and as of today, the following comments have been received. From the engineering department, they have no comments. The drainage superintendent had no comments as well, and the fire department had no objection to the proposed application. The Niagara region stated that regional PSS staff have no concerns with the minor variance application. Given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend application A33-21-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the requested variances are considered reasonable and measured requests. 2, it is appropriate for development of the site as the accessory structure is located in a suitable location on the site. And 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as the majority of the requirements of the bylaw have been satisfied. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as accessory structures are permitted in the rural designation. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. If you can bring in the applicant or the agent for the applicant. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we can. Just before we get started, you don't wish to defer the application this evening?
Oh, not at all, Mr. Chairman. I'm
Thank you.
happy with the comments from staff and the planning department.
Thank you. You don't have anything further to add at this time?
No, I think it's covered pretty well. As this has been a deferred meeting, so we tried to make sure we've corrected all the variances as should be had, and they're before you right now.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the applicant this evening? I see them both shaking their head. Eric, you good? The only question I have is that on the additional, I guess, shed 2, the existing dwelling that's on the 0, or where the request for the 0 setback is. I realize that structure was probably existing when the current owners purchased that property. But in light of this recent survey and visiting the site a few times, the overhang of that shed actually extends beyond the property line. I didn't actually measure it. Based on the pictures and the setbacks, it looks like approximately a foot and a half onto the neighboring property. Is there any chance of moving that shed so the overhang is not extending past the property line?
Mr. Chairman, kind of difficult now, but I did look. I think it's a little bit deceiving as to what's the property line and what you see as the fence there. I think the fence, because of that retaining wall that's between this neighbor and to the east, I think the fence is over towards our property more than it shows. So we tried to take our dimension from the property line, not from the fence. And as far as I can tell, there shouldn't be an issue, a major issue. The shed that in question, shed number 2, is something built, is something undersized to what would be normally required as a permit. So I don't know how long ago it was there. I know it's been refaced to look like the house, but I think it's a shed that's been there forever, probably as long as the house itself. The house has been re-sided, reclad on the outside to modernize it, but I don't think it was ever moved from wherever it was installed. Like I said, speaking to the owner, he told me that retaining wall, which seems to be the property line, is not really the property line. So our dimensions are from the survey line that we retained from the survey.
Okay. But it's still showing the footprint of the shed, which would be the walls, not the overhangs, showing
Correct.
it being directly on the property line. So that overhang.
But we're requesting that 0.0 because, it's within inches or so from that property line. But like I said, the fence has been sort of built into it, but it's not really the property line. It's further over because they didn't want to disrupt the existing retaining wall. I think the retaining wall totally belongs to this guy here, to our client.
And that's fine, but the way this sketch is presented to us,
We've asked them there'd be no issue later on if there's a problem.
Sorry, say that again.
We've asked for it at 0 to not ask for another variance again later if it's found to be over a touch more. But from what we can tell, although it looks like we're on the neighbor's property, I don't think we are. With the overhang, not with the building.
So the footprint that we're seeing of the shed is the overhang, not the actual foundation or the walls of the shed.
Yeah, it's sitting on the asphalt or whatever the ground cover is, and I'm not sure if the asphalt continues within the shed. So it was not something that was. I don't think it could easily be moved. I think it was paved around it, so it'd be difficult to touch it. I'm assuming the way it's been built there, there's no real infringement on the neighbor to that side. The owner I know has spoken to him, and he seemed to have no issue with that, as it was. I guess because basically he's also beautified that wall of the shed to look similar to the rest of the property.
Okay, I'm just concerned that if that overhang does go beyond the property line, that the current neighbor may not have an issue, but a future neighbor may have an issue. In which case, now you're encroaching on their property, and that's where I have the concern. I realized that shed was existing when your client purchased the property. It is what it is, but we do have this now before us, and I don't think
it would ever be an issue if this neighbor or the new neighbor, let's say you're saying there's a new neighbor, that there would be any difference in what they see or what they expect when they buy the property. I don't think they expect to have a piece of land there between the building and that property.
Okay, Eric, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to our planner. I think it's Chris. Chris, do you have any comments that you can provide to the committee regarding this issue that the chair has rose?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard. This would be an issue between two private homeowners, so they would need to enter into an encroachment agreement on their own. It wouldn't be something that we can impose as a condition, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
So, Chris, to correct me then if I'm wrong, so you're saying that we cannot impose that as a condition that they stay within their property boundary?
To you, Mr. Chair, we wouldn't be able to impose a condition because we can't we can't certify that they have done it because we can't force them to enter into an encroachment agreement, essentially. We can make sure that the building is entirely within the property, which according to this sketch it is. I don't know about the overhang. It's not indicated here, but yeah, we just can't enforce that they enter into an encroachment agreement.
Because quite literally, that's where my concern is, because I think it's an unfair burden to put on either the current neighbor or any potential future neighbor. Now, say they get their property surveyed and then it comes back 10 years from now and says, well, that shed is actually on my property. then I guess it's up to them to litigate with the neighbor that they have to either move it or come to some sort of agreement. It just seems odd that we couldn't have that addressed right now while it's before us. I guess that's where I'm at. With that, does anyone else have any other questions? Everyone's shaking their head no. I don't believe there's any other public comment on this particular application. Just to confirm, Chris. I'm guessing silence means there is no other anyone that wanted to speak to this one. So with that, like I said, I'm the rest of the variances, I don't have any issues with at all. It's the shed and making sure that overhang. I'm a firm believer that you should be able to do within reason what you like on your property, as long as it's within the boundaries of your property. And my concern is that overhang potentially goes on to the neighbor property, and quite frankly, I think is wrong. I'd be in favor with everything, with the exception of that, since we can't add that as a condition. The only thing we could do is not allow that 0 side yard setback on that particular section. Eric?
I could bring forward the motion if that's okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
can I add one small thing?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, the actual shed from my actual records is approximately 0.15 meters from the property line, but we've asked for 0.0 because we didn't want to impose any worse. I mean, obviously we couldn't have asked for a variance that went across the property line as far as the boundaries of the wall. I do know that wall is, like I said, I do know that the wall of that shed is totally on our property. It is more than 0.0, but not probably enough to completely cover the overhang. I can't see that there'd be an issue in the future that someone couldn't deal with it on an amicable basis between the two property owners, and I don't think it would really cause any major disruption. I mean, that area's got a fairly high, another large retaining wall there, which would obviously any touching that retaining wall would hurt the property to the east, and I don't think that they're going to be compromised by having it as it sits right now, and anybody buying it can see how it sits, and I don't think there's potential use of that 0.1 or 0.2 more extra meters that might happen in that one spot. So it's one of those, I guess, misnomers or things where this thing was installed as it was, and so be it. It was not like an intention to put it onto the neighbor's property.
I believe that small shed also has an eave trough and a downspout. Is that correct?
It may on that side, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that the eave trough discharges onto our property.
Okay. Because that would be another issue, is to make sure that it does discharge onto the.
I mean, I can make sure it does, and it does discharge only on our property because it's a hip roof. There's only one downspout, and if I'm not mistaken, the downspout is on our side, like at the inside corner of that shed.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Eric,
sorry.
yeah.
Member Bruno is in the waiting room. Could someone let him in, please?
Through you to the chair. We were leaving him in the waiting room because he wasn't here at the start of this application. So I don't know how you want to proceed with that. That was the reason.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I was gonna suggest the same thing. Once we're done this one, you can bring him in.
Okay. All right. I will bring forward the motion then. An application A33-21-PC, legally known as parcel lots 3, 4, and 10, concession 1 on Plan 48, municipally known as 3475 Fire Lane 12. That minor variances 1 and 3 of the minor variance application A33-21-PC be granted for their minor in nature, appropriate for the development of the site, desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. and that minor variance number 2 be denied for
Thank
not
you.
being.
Yep.
Sorry.
Can I get a seconder to that? Angie? If I might, on number 2, the only portion of that is the first half of the variance, the 0.97 setback permitted to the proposed accessory structure. I believe is for the one in the front, if I remember correctly.
Yes, shed number 1
Yes.
is
So that one I don't have an issue with. That one seems well enough back that the overhang doesn't impede. It's just that 0 meter setback for that second accessory structure that's right on the property line, or is shown on the drawing. If it's not, then I'm fine with that, as long as the overhang does not exceed past the property line. So I would ask that either a friendly amendment to leave in the 0.97 meter setback be permitted. I don't know, like I said, I didn't go up and measure what the overhang of that structure was. If I had that dimension, I would take the 0 and change it to whatever that overhang is. I'm assuming it was maybe about a foot. I don't know what that is in metric.
0.3 meters.
0.3 meters.
I mean, one of the things that you could, I guess, if you really want, you could say that you accept that the shed is at a setback different than what the bylaw requires, as long as we keep our overhang on our property, and then it's up to the owner to try to relocate it, cut it off, or whatever he, I guess, chooses, as long as we're not over that property line. If you're willing to accept a shed at 0.0, then say it's 0.0 to the overhang.
Chris, is that something that would be enforceable by the city?
To you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I don't think that should be a problem from our end.
Okay, so if we amended to say the side yard setback of 0 meters to the overhang be permitted?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so Eric, if you like, I will move or ask for an amendment to the motion that the side yard setback of 0 meters to the overhang be provided for the existing accessory structure, and that a 0.97 meter setback be permitted for the proposed accessory structure, whereas a 1 meter is required. So I'll move that. Can I get a seconder for that? Angie? All in favor of that amendment? That'll be carried. So with that, back to the main motion then. 2 stays with the added wording of the 0 meter setback to the overhang of the accessory structure. So with that, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That'd be carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, the next application, please, and you can bring in Gary now.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next application tonight is application A04-22-PC. And in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended in section 6.5A of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as lot 769 and lot 770 on plan 836 in the City of Port Colborne Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the second density residential zone on the north side of Page Street. And in the matter of an application by the owner, Adam Alstead, for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the construction of a proposed semi-detached dwelling on Page Street, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum lot frontage of 16.81 meters be provided, whereas a minimum lot frontage of 18 meters is required for semi-detached dwellings. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the public and the required agencies on February 24th, 2022, and as of today, the following has been received. There is no comments or objections from the drainage superintendent, the fire department, or the engineering department. Given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend that application A04-22-PC be granted for the following reasons. One, it is minor in nature as the requested variance is considered a reasonable and measured request. Two, it is appropriate for development of the site as the reduced lot frontage will not negatively impact the location of the future semi-detached dwelling. Three, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as semi-detached dwellings are permitted in the R2 zone and the majority of the requirements of the bylaw have been satisfied. And four, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as semi-detached dwellings are permitted in the urban residential designation. That concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. Can you bring in the applicant or the agent for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chair, just checking my volume. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, just before we proceed, bringing the applicant in, you don't have any conflicts with any of the applications this evening?
I did not, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Adam, the floor is yours. Just before you get started, you don't wish to defer or withdraw your application this evening?
No, sir.
Thank you. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
No, sir.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the applicant this evening? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. So for the minor variance, I saw in the application that you said the lot is too small. Is it just too small to permit any semi-detached dwelling on the lot?
No, it's just your particular bylaws have a certain requirement. We can do semis on this size of lot. We just needed to have your blessing as far as this minor variance to allow the permit application.
I guess, Eric, to your question, to put a semi, the lot has to be wider than if it was a single detached dwelling.
Okay, so in other words, semi-detached dwellings, no matter this, no semi-detached dwelling would be able to fit on this lot based on the zoning bylaw that we currently have because of the lot frontage being too small. I'm assuming that's what it is.
Yes, Chris, you can confirm that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard. It's not that the semi-detached dwelling wouldn't fit on the lot. It's just that the lot requirements dictate that it needs to have a lot frontage of 18 meters, whereas they only have 16.81. You might recall this was severed a couple of months ago off of the Lions Club. There was a bit of confusion there because we thought the lot was already existing, so they went through the severance process. The lot was undersized for what they wanted to do, so now they're getting the variance to address that.
Okay, thank you. My concern was just that there was no building plan, so I just wasn't sure as to the full reasoning as to the minor variance. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't believe we have any delegations for this application this evening. So if there's nothing further, I'll ask for a recommendation. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to application A0422PC, the property legally known as Lot 769 and Lot 770 on Plan 836 on the north side of Page Street, the minor variance application A0422PC be granted for the following reasons. One, minor in nature, as a requested variance is considered reasonable and measured request. Two, appropriate for the development of the site as a reduced lot frontage will not negatively impact the location of the future semi-detached dwelling. Three, desirable compliance with general intent purpose of the zoning bylaw. The semi-detached dwellings are permitted in the R2 zone. The majority of the requirements of the bylaw have been satisfied. And four, desirable compliance with general intent purpose of the official plan. The semi-detached dwellings are permitted in the urban residential designation.
Thank you. Seconder to that? Eric? Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary, the next application at your leisure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next application tonight is application AO2-22-PC, and in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended and Section 6 of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw, zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as Concession 2, Part Lot 26 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the second density residential zone, Part 1 on the prepared sketch, municipally known as 126 Chippewa Road. And in the matter of an application by the agent Lee White on behalf of the owners Wake Properties for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP13, so as to permit the expansion of a legal non-conforming use. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the public and the required agencies on February 24th, 2022, and as of today, the following has been received. From Melissa Bigford. Ms. Bigford's comments have been summarized for the purposes of this meeting, but a full copy has been sent to the committee and the applicant, and if any member of the public wishes to view them, they can just contact the planning department. Ms. Bigford had concerns over the zoning bylaw compliance. She believed that a 3-meter landscape buffer should be provided between the parking area and the neighboring property, and had questions as to why a zoning bylaw amendment application wasn't required, and that she had concerns regarding the number of required parking spaces and the maneuverability on the site. Comments from the drainage, the fire department, and the engineering department, they all had no comments or no objections as well. Given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend that application AO2-22-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the requested variance is considered a reasonable and measured request. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site as there are no proposed external additions to the dwelling. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as the majority of the bylaw requirements have been met. And 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as apartments are permitted in the urban residential designation and the requirements of the official plan have been met. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. If you could bring in the applicant this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Everything fine?
Good evening, it is. Just before we get started, you don't withdraw or defer your application this evening?
That is correct.
Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
Just a few minor comments. It's an existing non-conforming apartment building within this zone. It's been here for quite some time, and there are no external changes, although there have been discussions during our pre-consultation about potentially putting a fence along that northern property line to mitigate some of the existing and proposed changes to the structure. It will be, there are two units on the second floor, 2 units on the first floor, and 1 currently in the basement. And they're proposing to put a second one in the basement. There's about 750 square feet or so that's just mechanical space right now. They would just isolate that and have about a 410 square foot apartment unit in the basement, which the new owner of this structure has been working very closely with both the building and fire departments to ensure compliance, and basically is trying to do the right thing here. So we would accommodate some minor intensification here without any changes to the building, external changes to the building. And welcome to field any questions you may have.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you. Through Chair, to the applicant. Has the additional unit been brought online? And I asked that because I looked at the number of electrical meters. All look like they're fairly new and up to date, but it seemed that there were the required electrical meters for the addition of the other units. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe give me a view on that.
It has not. No, we're proposing to apply for permits. Any modifications that have been done recently have been modifications to the existing units and have been done in consultation with the fire and building departments, as they had requested that some changes be made independent of this.
So there may be another service added to a comment.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Not seeing any. I believe we do have a delegation for this one that wishes to speak to this application. If we can bring that person in now.
To the chair, I did speak with Melissa this afternoon, and she noted that she may not have any additional concerns, but I will leave that for her to discuss with the committee.
Thank you.
No, just yeah, Chris had pretty much emailed me back. I was still querying about the fact that it was an official plan for the buffer, and I thought it was that overrides, say, the bylaw, that they are currently in an official plan compliant. So that was my only question that was left.
Okay. There's nothing else you'd like to add further to that?
No, Chris had answered my questions, basically saying that because it's non-conforming, it stays non-conforming. I question whether or not there will be enough spots in that back area. It looks tighter when you see it than what the diagram shows. And I just, I guess the other thing would be concerned is if it's going to end up on the street, and Chippewa is not a very wide street and has enough line sight issues as it is. So that's where my parking questions got brought up.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Not seeing any, and I believe that was the only delegation for that application, Chris?
That is correct.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to make any final comments?
Just to acknowledge that the parking does work. This is all graveled existing area, and the configuration of the parking along the northerly property line was done parallel with that property line so that they run east to west, so that the lights would not be shining off the property, but more toward the back of the property. And that was just a consideration that was made. So if need be, they could be put into parallel and both against the fence. There'd be plenty of room for circulation of vehicles back there. And I've never noticed any conflicts at all, having been on the site a few times myself.
Okay. You'll have to forgive me. When I went to the property, I didn't actually drive into the back. The structure that's in the back, is that a garage?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And how many bays are in the garage? There,
5.
It looks like, okay. I'm looking at an aerial image of it at the moment online, but it looks like there was 5. So, okay. And then I think in this sketch, if I'm not mistaken, shows potentially 2 more on the kind of the north back corner. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So that would give you a potential of 8 total. Okay. That's all the questions I have. If no one has any other further questions, look for a recommendation. Angie?
Thank you. So I'm going to try to cobble it together. I didn't receive any of the decision scripts, so I'm going to do my best here. Okay. Okay, the application A02-22-PC be granted for the following reasons. That would be the property known as 126 Chippewa Road. The following reasons would be 1, minor in nature, 2, appropriate for the development of the site, 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Gary, any questions or comments? All those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next application, I believe, is the one that Eric, you have a conflict with. So he will boot you out into the waiting room so we can't hear or see you. And we'll bring you back in after that meeting. So once Eric's gone, Mr. Secretary, you can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next application is application B06-22-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the lands legally known as Concession 2, part lots 26 and 27, and part of the road allowance between lots 26 and 27, on reference plan 59R 1871 in the City of Port Colborne Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the light industrial zone, municipally known as 72 Kalele Street East. And in the matter of an application by the agent William Highcoop on behalf of the owners 1218614 Ontario Inc. for a lot boundary adjustment under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1, having a lot frontage of 20.65 meters and a lot area of 1,839 square meters for a proposed lot addition to the abutting Part 3. Part 1 will retain a lot frontage of 74.44 meters. I believe that should say is Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 74.44 meters on Kalele Street East, and a lot area of 5,511 square meters. This application is also subject to site plan control application D11-01-22. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the public and the required agencies on February 23rd, 2022, and as of today, the following has been received. From the drainage superintendent, the fire department, and the engineering department, they all had no comments or no objection. Given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend application B06-22-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper copy and electronic copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. And 2, that a final certification fee of $216 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. And 3, that Part 1 and Part 3 be merged on title. For the following reasons: 1, the application conforms to the provincial policy statement, the policies of the regional official plan, the City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. If you can bring in the applicant for this particular application, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is William Highcoop. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants. I'm the agent representing the owner for this evening's meeting. I don't have a lot of comments to add, but just want to note plainly that we are currently undertaking a site plan application for a new warehouse on the Part 3 property. And so in order to accommodate that site plan application, we required a little bit of extra space for the driveway access and loading docks. So that's being processed aside from this process by city staff. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll assume by you going into that dissertation that you don't wish to withdraw your application this evening.
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant or the agent for the applicant? Seeing shaking heads, no. The only question I have, I was looking on the Niagara Navigator map, and I realize that's not 100% accurate, but was this piece severed once upon a time, or because it looks like it already exists at 72 Kalali Street, and I was just wondering if it got separated somehow. It just seems weird that it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So in this instance, we're doing a boundary adjustment, not a pure severance. So we're simply moving the line between two properties and not creating a new line. So 72 Kalali Street is already a separate property from Part 3.
Oh, I understand that, but based on the sketch that you provided, it looks like the existing boundary for 72 is really close, like 3 meters from the edge of the building. When you look on Niagara Navigator, where it shows property boundaries, it shows it kind of over where you're proposing to put it. So I was just curious why that is. I know there's always glitches in the system, but it just seemed like it was already out to that distance anyway. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I was just curious if there was some backstory there.
Yeah, so the rest, the properties were always split previously. So my understanding is that we meet the interior side yard setback where the new property line goes, and any other zoning deficiencies are an existing legal non-conforming situation, specifically to, I believe, the front yard setback and even the rear yard setback.
Okay, thank you. Just to confirm, Chris, there is no one that wishes to speak to this application?
That's correct.
Thank you. If there's no other further questions or comments, does anyone have a recommendation? Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to application B06-22PC, in the matter of the lands legally known as concession 2, part lots 26 and 27, and part of the road allowance between lots 26 and 27, municipally known as 72 Kalali Street East. The consent application B0622PC be granted subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated March 4th, 2022 for the following reasons. 1, the application conforms to provincial policy statement, the policies of the regional official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended. 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13.
Thank you. Seconder to that? Angie? Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And you can bring Eric back in and the final application whenever you're ready.
We're just having a little bit of a tech glitch here, so just bear with us a second.
Sure.
Okay, we should be good to go. Our next application is application number A03-22-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended in section 2.18A, 2.19.1, 3.7B, and 8.5 C, D, F, and I in the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended. And for, in the matter of the lands legally known as lots 21, 20, 21, 22, 23, and part lot 24 on plan 857 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the 4th density residential zone, municipally known as 80 Nickel Street. And in the matter of an application by the agent Jacob Dickey on behalf of the owners 2819524 Ontario Inc. for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13, so as to permit the construction of 2 proposed 3-story stacked townhouse developments with a total of 14 units, notwithstanding the following. One, that the proposed garbage storage areas be located in the front yard, whereas garbage storage areas are permitted in the interior side and rear yard. That a rear yard setback for both proposed patios / decks of 3 meters be permitted, whereas 4.5 meters is required for decks with a height above the ground floor level of 1.2 meters or greater. 3, that a driveway width of 6 meters be permitted, whereas 7.5 meters is required for driveways where two-way traffic is permitted. 4, that a front yard setback of 3 meters be permitted, whereas 7.5 meters is required in the R4 zone. That an interior side yard setback of 1.1 meters be permitted, whereas 3 meters is required in the R4 zone. That a rear yard setback of 5 meters be permitted, whereas 6 meters is required in the R4 zone. And that a width of both proposed planting strips of 2.3 meters be permitted, whereas a width of 3 meters is required for lands abutting a third density residential zone. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the required agencies and the public on February 24th, 2022, and as of today, the following has been received. Just a note, these comments have been summarized in the planning staff report. For a copy of the full comments, please refer to the agenda package. From Cindy Martineau at 166 Mitchell Street. She has concerns over the encroachment into yards as well as privacy concerns from the height of the buildings. She has concerns over the amount of parking and where the overflow parking will be located. She's inquiring about the types of tenants that will be inhabiting the dwellings. And she has concerns over the height of the proposed dwellings and believes that a 2-story dwelling would be better suited for the lot. From Shelby Peters at 56 Nickel. She has issues over the size of the proposed dwellings, and she has concerns over the privacy into nearby properties and concerns over the required amount of parking. And from Rosemary Taylor at 166 Mitchell Street, she does not believe that the garbage storage area should be located in the front yard. Rodents are an issue, and this proposal could make things worse. Does not believe that the encroachment into the required yard should be permitted, and believes that the reduction in driveway width will result in difficulties maneuvering and could lead to accidents. She does not believe that a reduction in the front yard setback should be permitted, as dust from transport trucks may have a negative impact. The drainage superintendent, the fire department, and the engineering department all had no comments or no objection. Given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend that application A03-22-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature, as the requested variance is considered reasonable and measured request. It is appropriate for the development of the site, as the buildings will be located in a suitable location on the site. It is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as townhouse dwellings are permitted in the R4 zone, and the majority of the requirements of the bylaw have been satisfied. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as townhouse dwellings are permitted in the urban residential designation. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. If you can bring in the applicant or the agent for the applicant.
Good evening, everyone. Hello.
Good evening.
Perfect. There you go. All right. I'm
just before you get started, you don't withdraw or defer your application?
No.
Very good. The floor is yours.
Perfect. All right. Just going to share my screen here. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Dickey, and I'm here with my colleague, Terrence Glover. We are from Urban and Mine Planning Consultants, and we're acting on behalf of the owner of 80 Nickel Street for the proposed minor variance application, which would result in the development of 2 new 7-unit block townhouse buildings on the subject land in place of the existing derelict vacant lot. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the site context. I will talk about the policies and zoning regulations affecting the subject property. Afterwards, I'll introduce the design concept, the requested variances, and we'll finish off with questions and comments. Starting with the site context, the subject property is located within the East Village, which is a neighborhood that has experienced a higher rate of economic decline over the years when compared to other areas in the city. This is perceived by the large number of vacant and underutilized parcels, which in today's age has created new opportunities for intensification and redevelopment. The site itself is located on the north side of Nickel Street, which is classified as a collector commercial industrial road, which is also intended to act as one of the primary main streets within the community due to its mix of uses. Here we have a closer look at the subject property. The site has a total lot area of just over 1,000 square meters and a frontage of just under 35 meters. It is predominantly comprised of sod and asphalt. There are no structures or trees on the site, and as such, does not have the most attractive appearance from the public realm. There are also a number of other vacant and underutilized sites that are situated along Nickel Street, including right next door and across the street. The proposed development will help to fill in one of these gaps to create a more compact and animated street edge. Moving on to the policy context. The subject property is located within the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which provides direction on how and where to accommodate the forecasted population growth. The subject property is located within this purple area here. It's just right here, which is otherwise known as the built-up area. This is where the majority of the province's residential growth will take place, and it will predominantly be done through infill development. The intention is to prevent urban expansion from fragmenting agricultural land and sensitive natural heritage features located outside of the urban areas. In layman's term, it means don't build on farmland. Moving on to the regional official plan. Again, the subject property is located within the built-up area, colored in gray here. The regional official plan contains a number of different policies that speak to promoting more compact forms of development within the built-up area in order to make for the better use of existing land and municipal infrastructure. It also speaks to promoting a diverse range and types of housing, including affordable and rental housing units, to address the different needs of current and future residents. And then we have the City of Port Colborne official plan, which places the entirety of the Nickel Street corridor within the red mixed-use area land use designation of the East Waterfront Secondary Plan. The mixed-use area here, which is highlighted in red, should generally achieve higher densities than the abutting interior residential areas that are highlighted in yellow. The secondary plan encourages the development of both townhouses and apartment buildings up to 5 stories within this designation. We are proposing 3 stories. Moving on, according to the city's zoning bylaw, the subject property is located within the R4, 4th density residential zone, which allows for higher density residential built forms, including townhouses and apartment buildings. As you can see, I know it's tight here on this map, Nickel Street has a higher percentage of R4 zone properties when compared to other areas in the East Village. And as such, it is anticipated to accommodate higher densities to help reshape the street as a vibrant corridor. And this is a reflection of the official plan policies, which also allows for higher density uses along this street. All of this makes the subject property an ideal location for intensification, given the planning permissions, its large size, and vacant use. And I'm sure many of you are already aware, but this building located next door is no longer. It's currently a vacant site. So this entire stretch here is vacant. And in addition to across the street, and other areas along Nickel Street. Here we have our design concept. Our intention is to eventually sever the lands into 2 separate lots, each one containing 1 3-story block townhouse with 7 units. There will be a total of 8 parking spaces for each lot, which exceeds the zoning bylaw parking requirements. Access to parking will be provided in the middle via a shared easement. Landscaping will surround the site. There will be decks in the rear yards. This is what the unit breakdown will look like. So the entrance to unit 1, 3, and 6 will be provided along the frontage of the site, thereby giving animation to the streetscape, while the entrance to the remaining 4 units will be provided from the interior courtyard on the side of the building. Upper level units will be accessed by way of the walk-ups, which will also function as balconies. The unit sizes will range between 51.5 and 77 square meters, or 554.3 square feet and 828 square feet, which helps to meet Port Colborne's growing demand for more affordable rental units. Here we have conceptual elevations. Again, conceptual, they're not finalized, but this is what the buildings could look like from the streetscape. The brick area in the middle here is meant to be a curtain wall that will hide views of the front stairs from the streetscape. There will also be 0.75 meter high landscape walls here, which will help to screen the garbage storage areas and the parking. Moving on to site statistics, the proposed development meets the lot area, lot frontage, building height, landscaping, and parking requirements. And in terms of the variances that are being requested for the proposed development, includes allowing garbage to be stored in the front yard, a reduction to the required setback for the rear decks, a reduced width for a 2-way driveway, reduced front, side, and rear yard setbacks, and a reduced width for the planting strip abutting the residential zone in the rear. These variances will help to facilitate a compact development that is more in line with the intensification objectives of the official plan and the provincial planning documents. I would also like to make note that in our justification report for variance number 5, we noticed that the side yard setback applied to the proposed severed and retained lot. I would like to correct that since we haven't gone through with our severance application. So the variances as written here stand. And given the site context and planning policies that affect the subject property, we believe that there's enough merit to support the 7 requested minor variances, which individually and collectively meet the general intent and purpose of the regional and local official plans. They meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and are desirable and appropriate for the lands and are minor in nature. That being said, the proposed development will also help to improve the quality of the streetscape by providing for a new attractive built form on a vacant and derelict parcel that will increase the number and diversity of housing options available within Port Colborne, while also attracting new investment into East Village, as well as new customers to local businesses. And that wraps our presentation, so I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions? Angie.
Thank you very much to the presenter. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was actually very full of information for the people who are watching. Helpful for all of us to realize that this will be a great addition to the community. There's no question on that. And I would agree with everything you said, include all the variances. They may seem like quite a lot for some of the people watching, but most of that is what we see these on a regular basis. The only thing I do not agree with, and I really can't accept, is the garbage. That is a problem. 2 garbage bins sitting out on a street that people walk across all the time, considering that that you don't have a lot of space in there. It just doesn't sit well with me. There's odor. Unless you're using a special system that's going to lock down odor and that sort of thing, that would be very different. But the odor, the rodents that were mentioned by one of the commenters, just and the general trashiness around a garbage site. They just do get that way. I can't really abide by that. Is there some way you can put those garbage bins somewhere else?
For you, Mr. Chair, if I may speak.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. If we can pull up, maybe I can share my screen. So one of the problems we had was, where do we put the garbage on this site? We put it at the back of the lot. Do we put it inside of the lot? So we've elected to put it here so that we can get 2 more parking spaces on the site. So we're over our parking requirement. So the simple answer is, yeah, we'll move this back and we'll eliminate these 2 parking spaces. But we felt that if we develop this properly, that there's an opportunity to add 2 more parking spaces on this site. And we're talking a matter of 3 meters difference of where the garbage could be located versus where we're proposing it. There's not really, to be fair, there's not really much difference between 3 meters here and there, but we do get extra parking of it. So there is a net benefit by putting it here. But if the committee, and I'll pose it to the committee, if you feel that the garbage issue is so great that it cannot be overcome, then I propose, and the other variances are okay, that you approve the other variances and you deny this one variance, and then we will revise it accordingly. I suggest to the committee, though, that although I understand the neighbors' concerns, I understand the committee members' concerns, the difference between the legal way to do it and the proposed way to do it is 3 meters, and we get 2 extra parking, so we get a net benefit out of it. Again, if you so feel that it's too great of an issue to approve, then just deny that one variance and we'll redesign accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
I'm just wondering, and maybe I'm not seeing it on the more detailed drawing and in the elevation drawing, is there a way, I'm assuming, is this a front end loading truck that would come in with the 2 arms and grab the bin? Is that the acceptable type of receptacle you're going to be using?
So this is actually street pickup garbage, municipal pickup. So okay. There are bins out there that we can get for the site that are rodent proof, that are odor proof. I think what you're speaking to, or example that there's out there, is Moloch type construction, where it's in the ground and it's contained and everything. And those are great units, but they're for private pickup, and we're using municipal pickup for the site. It's just it works better, and also any pickup of the garbage would be from the street, because there's not adequate room on the site for turnarounds, hammerheads, or cul-de-sac turnarounds for any truck movement.
Can I just ask then? Well, are you expecting the Niagara Regional, the contractor for the region to enter between the walls and go in and pick it up? Or is someone at the building going to take the wheelie bins to the curb?
Yes, they'll be to the curb.
So that being the case, why would it, if you're having somebody come out and wheel those bins from the front, 10 feet across the sidewalk to the curb, you've already engaged someone who's doing it and they're on wheels. Why can't the garbage bins be at the back and it's just the caretaker / superintendent wheeling it a little farther?
So I'll see if I can put the drawing back up here. And Jacob, you could chime in as well in terms of the placement of the garbage. Can you all see that?
Yep.
So you're suggesting that we move the garbage to the back landscape area here? That's the only other place that it theoretically could go. And we'd have to, and Jacob, can you look quickly to see if we need any variances for garbage at the back area here?
It is permitted in the rear yard, garbage storage area.
Okay.
But from an accessibility perspective, we thought that for residents who are leaving the building or for even pedestrians who are passing by, we thought it would be much more convenient for them to drop off any garbage that they have at the front of the site. And then in addition, putting the garbage at the rear creates a bit of a nuisance for the residents who are using the patios in the back, in addition to the abutting residents who back on to the subject property as well. So there were a few different reasons there as to why we thought it.
So in saying that, thank you, Jacob, for that. If the committee feels that this is an issue that cannot be overcome, can't be supported, I'd encourage the committee to just deny this one variance, and we'll have to redesign the site accordingly. I think there's benefit to putting it here, but I mean there's cost as well, and I do appreciate that. It's really what's better for the development in the area. And again, I stress to you that if you feel that shouldn't be overcome, that it would just refuse that one, and the other variances, if they're acceptable, should be permitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Gary?
Well, I mean, Angie's involved and knows that neighborhood more than I or anybody else, or Eric. And so, I mean, I just thought really, if you're in the middle of that building and you walk to the back, I thought there was, the way you described the square footages in that there was more units mid to back than there is mid to front. So I would have saw that as a closer walk. The other thing is, I would be concerned too. I mean, we already I know I'm in a building where, you have mysterious cars drive in and start using front lift garbage bins. And I think the deeper you go in, the harder that is without getting spotted. You're not on your route and, sort of dine and dash by a garbage as an analogy. But yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that the back would be a lot more aesthetically pleasing. I just think it might lead to less extra dumping or somebody going by. So I would be prepared to do that if the rest of the committee agrees.
Thank you. Eric, I see you had your hand up.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to either the applicant or our planner. I know at pre-con, the region would typically provide comment on garbage pickup. Was there any concerns raised by the region at this? Did they have any comments?
Yeah, I can feel that through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard. From what I recall, I don't think that the region had any concerns with the amount of garbage there. They said that their standard pickup should be fine.
Okay.
Gary?
Well, I'm just wondering if they wouldn't comment because it's being taken to the street. So from their point of view, it's at the back, the middle, or the front inside the property line. There's going to be an attendant bring it to the street. I think it's going to be for the staff, the pickup people. I think it would be the same, but that's just an observation.
I hear the comments that are coming in, and they're all rational comments being made. And I think maybe to resolve the issue, we can rescind or we can remove the variance for the garbage. All the other ones we would stand, obviously, but I feel that there's too great of a concern here about the garbage location that it's up to us to solve the problem some other way. So we can remove that one variance if it pleases the committee.
Thank you, Eric.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. if we do that, is the alternative option essentially you're going to remove those 2 parking spaces? Because that's how I'm saying it's either we remove those 2 parking spaces and you come up with the garbage go closer in, or we keep it the way it is. So is that correct?
So that's an option. I don't. It's not the best option, obviously. I have to talk with my client as to what they're prepared to do. Some of the suggestions were put at the back of the property, and if a variance is not required to put at the back of the property, it seems pretty logical to me that it may be possible to put there. Again, no guarantees because I'm not the owner of the property, but we're going to present these different scenarios to the client and give a recommendation as to which one we feel is the best alternative, and go from there. So to answer your question, there is a possibility that we can move those 2 parking spaces and still meet code and everything. But I don't think that would be my recommendation. My recommendation is probably put it at the back and keep those spots. We want to have as many parking spots as possible. And if it just means putting the garbage at the back and someone has to walk them to the street, so be it.
Eric, you good?
All right, I must be having some technical difficulties because it glitched at some point in time. But I think I like it the way it is better, and the landscape wall does, or I believe that's what it's called, at least mitigate some of the issues like you stated in your plan justification report. Into the back has its own problems. That was also mentioned by your colleague. So I think the best option is the one that is maybe currently. So.
Thank you. You did fade out a little bit there, but I think we got the gist of what you're saying. Does anyone else have any other questions? Angie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say if Gary, if you wanted to put that forward and remove option 1 or variance 1, I'd be happy to support that.
Sure. I mean, perhaps another question. If it through you to planning staff, if we remove that variance and the garbage was put at the back, and for whatever reason it wasn't workable, does the owner have the option to come back for a change?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno, they would always have that option. I'd keep in mind that I know the applicant has stated that they want to try and keep all 16 parking spaces. They are over the limit, so in the event that they move the garbage storage to the rear of the property, and let's say they have to remove the 2 extra parking spaces for whatever reason, they still do meet the bylaw requirements there, so there shouldn't be a reason that they would need to come back, at least for parking concerns.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, I'd like to move the removal of, I'm sorry, Angie, which one was it?
It would be number 1 on the list when we get there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the answer is yes, I'd like to propose that.
Okay. The only question I have, and maybe I don't know if it's a Chris question or the applicant can also help here, but at what point does the region not pick up garbage for a building or a situation like this? I'm looking at this. You got 7 units on either side. You have each unit is entitled to 1 bag every 2 weeks. So when that garbage gets to the street, does each individual person have a bin that's numbered to their apartment? So the region knows that, okay, I'm only picking up 14 bins between these 2 properties? Or what happens if someone's quick to the gets 2 out there and then there's 1 short? How does that work?
Typically, and I'll let staff answer the number of bags, but I don't know that off the top of my hand. But if you put more bags out than permitted, just in any single detached house or semi-detached or triplex or duplex, there's tags that you can buy to put on your extra bags.
Yes.
And if there are excess bags or someone's abusing that system, then the building management would have to take over and monitor and police that situation. Yep. The region doesn't care whose bags or what bags are there. they care that the bags are paid for, and there's a limit on bags, and there's usually a notification that's given to the property if something's out of whack.
So really it becomes a free for all, or the building has to manage that garbage coming out to the street.
Well, as with any multi-unit building, they do that anyways. Whether it's a condominium rental, the building management, the building owner is responsible for that garbage, not the tenants. And the building owner then has to police that. So it's typical in any multi-unit building anywhere.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering where's the limit of the region actually picking up like an apartment building? Like you could literally, if you had a 20-story building, that would be like 3 garbage trucks just for that one building, sort of thing.
There's a limit. I think it's 20. I think it's 25 bags per property per building. Or this is a stack down now, so I'm not sure what the limits are, and perhaps the city planner would know.
Okay. Whether you do or you don't, Chris, I think that my question was answered, so I'm good with that. I will also say that although the garbage is at the front, I know there was concerns about rodents and everything else. Personally, being that it's in the front, it's more visual, therefore people have more eyes on it, therefore it should be kept more tidy. Whereas if it's in the back, out of sight, out of mind, and rodents come in from the back property, the side property, at least on the street, hopefully it would be kept more tidy and neat and controlled because it's there in everyone's eyesight going forward. I do know that the adjoining buildings on either side actually would extend closer to the property line. Well, I guess the one on the one side now, the other one's missing. But the one to the east would actually be out in front of the proposal here. So although it sounds like it's really close to the property line, in fact, it'll actually be recessed. The buildings will be recessed from the adjoining or adjacent building in the front end. Like I said, I would be of the opinion. I understand the odors potentially on the street, walking by, so on and so forth. But and Gary, to your point too, about people just dropping extra bags off as they drive by. Anyway. So with that, Eric, did you have your hand up for another question?
Yes, I did. Through Mr. Chair to the applicant. I'm just want to get some clarity maybe on the garbage situation. If you were to put the garbage in the back, like what is being discussed here, would the garbage collection be private then, or still region?
It'd still be regional. We'd bring it to the street. But just to clarify again, with all due respect, I think we'll withdraw that variance for the garbage, and then this discussion is kind of moot because it's no longer requested. And then we will, and no disrespect, we intended as that statement. But what I mean by that statement is we'll come back with a design that is as best possible for the site as per the owner's request. And we will meet zoning requirements, so therefore there's not a variance required for garbage.
Okay. Anyone else got any other questions before we go to, I believe we do have a delegation for this particular application as well. So if no one else has got any other questions, Chris, if you can bring in the delegation if they're still there.
Thank you, Chair and committee members.
Good evening. Just before you get started, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Julie Barker, and I own a home at 170 Mitchell Street in Port Colborne. It's right around the corner from the proposed building site.
Very good. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My concern, I have a number of concerns about the request for the minor variances. First of all, there's a number of committees throughout the world, the United Nations, that housing is a basic human right. And all over the world, they're looking at these micro apartments and small spaces. And they're second questioning them now because 550 square feet is average small. And that leads to a number of health risks, psychological risks, raising blood pressure, privacy issues. It can become domestic violence. There's just a number of issues that come with such small sizes. I understand that you try to get as many units into the square footage of the building, but housing shouldn't be a commodity like gold or crypto. The potential of health risks and crowding challenges might outweigh the benefits of affordable housing. And I heard Mr. Dickey mention affordable housing a number of times. And with that statement, it really is loaded. Everybody wants to bring in affordable housing for the virtue signaling, but higher density isn't always the right way to go. I just feel that all of that should be looked at. It is a privacy issue. It's the house on 170 Mitchell Street. It's a family environment. There's single dwelling homes. There's, we're beside a monstrosity that is derelict and empty right now. But it's not in keeping with the neighborhood. It would be totally stand out. And I think that, from a neighborhood, the garbage, what about where will the recycling go? Are these bins and recycling, are they encased in a wooden structure, or are the bins just left out in the open? Can I ask questions through the chair?
Yes, you can, but just keep going through for your 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to the end and try to address all your questions.
Oh, okay. That's basically it. I was really concerned about the size of the units. It seems to be that this segment of society continues to get victimized because of the colloquialism of affordable housing. They're victimized by their circumstances, and they're forced to live in these units that, 500 square feet isn't acceptable. They're not. 800 square feet is not acceptable. You don't know what's going to happen. The people, it's the high density it's not conducive to very much. They didn't read out my submission, so I guess if I could read that out. The setback should not be allowed for the entire site as health and safety concerns for the residents, respect of the residents, and quality of life is being disregarded to create more units, therefore increasing monthly income for landlords and owners. The units are unacceptably small by square footage, which may not be conducive to the mental well-being of many folks who are forced to live in such dwellings because of restrictive monthly income. Well, the garbage receptacles, I'm assuming that's a moot point now. I think that's so totally disrespectful that every time you come and go from your home, you have to pass by the garbage. I know the neighborhood well, and the garbage should not be at the front. It's a health and safety issue as well of the residents of the building, and within the neighborhood is another factor. Because of the number of units, it is presumable that a recycling and waste company will be servicing, but therefore the setbacks should not be allowed. I just have great concern over the size of the units and the impact right across the scale, safety, mental health. It all outweighs it just outweighs you know, what it might bring in 14 units, but at what cost? Thank you.
Thank you. I will get to your one point about the garbage storage. I will pass that to the applicant for comment. I will say though that with regards to what we're hearing tonight, has nothing to do with the size of the units. So we're just talking about some setbacks around the periphery of the building. All other elements of this building, and in the original presentation, this could have been a 5-story building if I heard correctly in the presentation. So as far as the size of the units, that is not up for discussion with this committee. It's not in our purview to even go there in this particular case. So those comments don't even need to be addressed because they're not applicable at this particular juncture. But you did have a comment about the type of storage for garbage as well as recycling, and whether it'd be in a penned-in area. Maybe the applicant could comment on that.
Right. So with respect to your question about recycling, recycling will be located in the proposed garbage storage area that was shown on the site plan, whether it be in its location that was shown on the drawing or in its new location. And then they will be standard garbage and recycling bins. We don't have any plans on containing them within any specific cages or anything of that nature, if that's what your question was.
So I just not to jump over the presenter there, but so each unit there'll be 7 garbage bins, there'll be 7 gray bins, there'll be 7 blue bins for each side of the unit. So that's I count that as 21 bins of some sort potentially for each units on either side. Would that be a fair statement?
I don't think I'll use an example. So there's oversized bins and there's regular sized bins. For the storage purposes, I don't believe everybody's going to have their own bin. It would be a larger size bin that people would collectively put their recycling in. Then that would be either wheeled to the curb or divided at the curb in terms of the bags, whatever it needs to be done to meet regional standards. I don't expect 27 bins on this site. Again, it has to be, we have to, okay, so actually now I'm thinking about it, there's no variance required here. So the discussion on the garbage isn't necessarily relevant, but in terms of answering the public though, how bins will be taken care of, we will resolve the garbage as per any other development permitted in this site. It will be to municipal standards, it'll be regional satisfaction, and it will be as neat and tidy as we could possibly do it. We're still, even if we move the garbage to the back, I think we're still going to have that screening wall because it's an attractive feature to the site. It also helps screen the cars in that. So I don't believe that this, again, we want to beautify this site. We don't want to create a situation that's ugly or a problem here. But again, I'll come back to it that the garbage is off the table in terms of minor variance, and the site will develop through site plan approval, and the city will have to approve whatever we propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
If it helps, I'm in a 57 unit building with highly conscientious recycling people and seniors. And there are 6 blue bins and 6 brown bins. They are the large ones with wheels. So Terrence hit it right on. And they make it through the week, and the regional truck comes in, the modern one, and picks it all up. Works quite well. And even on total garbage for 57 units, it's just one not large front end commercial truck that comes in with the 2 arms on it and picks it up, and it's in a surround or pen, as you stated, Mr. Chair. It all works quite well and is quite clean, if that helps.
Okay, Angie. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I had forgot to ask two questions when I was speaking before. And one was about the affordable housing, the affordable aspect of this housing. You did say that there would be affordable housing contained within this development. Is it all affordable housing or just portioned?
Just to be clarified, it's not technically affordable housing. What we said is that, the speaker, Julie, unfortunately, her opinion is that a small unit is detrimental to people, but unfortunately, some people can't afford anything larger. Whether they should have it or could have it, or whatever the society, we're providing units that are more affordable compared to other types of units in the municipality, and they're new, and they're you can be proud of where you live. You don't necessarily have to live. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, people had a 1,200 square foot house, and that was a monster home too. They had 4 or 5 kids in these houses. Today, that's not acceptable. We need a 2,000, 3,000 square foot house. But you can live in a smaller space. And unfortunately, some parts of society, and Port Colborne has, there's initiatives for homelessness and people transitioning. And these would be gateways, a project where there's a transition to housing. This would be the next step for moving out of Gateway, perhaps, to moving to a self-sustaining house that people can be proud of, that they can afford.
Okay, so it would be an affordable project. Do you have a definition though for affordable? Because there are so many definitions. If you're talking to developers, they usually are talking about 80% of the market rate. If you're talking to people in the social service delivery sector, they're talking about 30% of your income. It's all over the map. Do you have any definition that you're using?
So let me just clarify here. I agree with what you're saying. It's all over. Typically, as I understand, it's 30% below market rate. In this case, it is going to be market rate, but because the sizes are smaller, the rents would be cheaper, obviously, because you're getting less for your money, you say. So they're not technically affordable housing. They are more affordable because they're smaller. It's the ratio size, the price to size, right?
Okay, so you're talking about the $1,200 to $1,800 range, depending on the number of bedrooms.
Stay away from money.
Okay, yeah,
but it's market rate, whatever it is.
I won't try to nail you down on that. There's just one other thing, and this is really nitpicky, but it's Nickel Street is not spelled L-E, it's E-L. just so everyone knows, including our staff. We even our report says it. Okay.
Correct this
Thank
on any
you.
other. I apologize.
That's everything I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, there was only the one delegation that wished to speak to this application.
That's correct.
Thank you. So with that, does the presenter or applicant, have any further comments they wish to add at this time? Not seeing any. So with that, I think Gary, you made the comment, or Angie proposed that you make the comment to move a motion.
Sure. So with respect to it, we don't even have to deal with, so one is no longer.
Correct.
Is no longer there. So it would just be the one as presented by staff, correct, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, but one is the one with the garbage in the front.
Yes.
No,
I mean, our version that we were sent, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Or it's just the reasons. Very good. With respect to application, I think I have the right one here. Is this AO 322?
Correct.
Yes. In the matter of the lands legally known as lots 20, 21, 22, 23, and part lot 24 on plan 857, municipally known as 80 Nickel Street, spelled right there. The minor variance application AO 322 PCB granted for the following reasons. Minor in nature, as requested variances are considered reasonable and measured requests. 2, appropriate for the development of the site as the building will be located in a suitable location on the site. 3, desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as townhouse dwellings are permitted in the R4 zone, and the majority of the requirements of the bylaw have been satisfied. 4, desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as townhouse dwellings are permitted in the urban residential designation.
Thank you. Seconder, Angie. Now, just for clarity's sake, so on ours, there was 7 variances requested. The first one was to propose garbage storage area be located in the front yard, whereas garbage storage areas are permitted in the interior side yard or rear yard. So that one is no longer in there. So there's actually only 6. Just for everyone's clarity, as everyone's shaking their head in agreement. So with that, if there's no other questions or comments, all those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you all.
And just to wrap things up, is there any other business from anybody? Not seeing any. Just before we go, I would like to, being that the provincial rules looks like they're going to be changing before our next meeting. Chris, is there any discussion or guidance from City Council with regards to going back to in-person meetings? Will Council be doing that in the near future?
To you, Mr. Chair, yeah, we have heard nothing yet. I will let you know, myself or Sam will let you know when we hear more from Council.
Okay. Secondly, we apparently have Sam in the room. Welcome. She's still there somewhere. I don't see her on the screen, but
yeah, she's sitting behind the desk. She just doesn't have a microphone in front of her.
Okay. I'm assuming next meeting she'll be kind of taking your role for that role.
That's correct. We thought it would be best if she started from the ground up, as it were. So once we receive an application, she'll be able to process it from beginning to end. It's a little bit easier that way.
Perfect. Welcome and all the success to you and your new adventure in City Hall in Port Colborne. So with that, if no one else has any other business, the minutes of the March 9th meeting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did we miss?
I have January 12th and February 9th.
I'm just looking at the agenda that was made out in our report. See, there you go. So, once I read it, I realized that hey, wait a minute now. So January and February. I guess I should have scrolled to the end of our report there for the minutes. So with that, for those 2 meetings, we can do them in block. I had a mover, Angie, a seconder, Gary. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That'll be carried. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting and we'll do it all again next month. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.